All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Richard.lesperance. I go by the name of my man, Richard. Welcome to A Better Lifestyle. Today, I have the pleasure to have Laura Berman Fortgang. So Laura's been she's been on Oprah. She's done some TEDx talks, and she's also an author. So I think you guys are really gonna benefit from from this episode. So please, Laura, tell us a little bit about your story, and we'll get started.
Sure. I've been a coach for almost 30 years. I started out my career as an actor and a waiter and found my way into coaching and found my way into corporate boardrooms as an executive coach. After the tragedy of 9/11, I suddenly had all these people asking me to help them reinvent their careers. That's what came out of that. People just got scared that life is too short, anything could happen to them, and it wasn't worth working at a job that they hated. So I became known for career reinvention, and a lot of my books are about that. That's what my TEDx talk is about. And I've been able to travel to many parts of the world to spread the good news. And I feel very fortunate to do this work. I've been trained. I was one of the first people in the United States to get trained. I helped found the International Coaching Federation, which is now in 85 countries, I believe, around the world, and trying to make this profession a respected one.
So, talk to us about the transition from acting to coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I went into acting. That was my dream. I wanted to be on Broadway, do musical theater. My parents would not support me in an education doing that, so I went to college for communications, and then I moved to New York City. And I had reasonable success. I was a professional. I was in the unions. I did professional work, but I still had to wait on tables and supplement my income. And I became very disillusioned with my progress. I hadn't made it to Broadway yet. And I was very depressed. And I thought of an old mentor of mine, an acting mentor, and I called him, and he told me he'd become a coach and that maybe he could help me figure out what to do with my life. And I had never heard of such a thing. So I became a client, and I was a client for 2 years. I started a small company teaching presentation skills to corporate folks. Made sense. Actors stand up in front of crowds, have ease with presenting themselves. So I was teaching that. But then I realized I was doing something deeper with people that I didn't have a name for. And I looked at my coach and I said, I want to do what you do. And that was at the same time that one of the first coaching schools, Coach U, was starting. So like I said, I was one of the first people trained in the United States, in the world really, to be a coach. And I had a very lucky trajectory, but it was a transition that probably took like 2.5 years of going from, still waiting on tables until I could do coaching full time. No one knew what it was. People were like, what team, what sport? You're a soccer mom. Who are you? What do you do? So it was quite a journey to educate people on what it was and how I could help them.
Talk to us about I know you talk about a lot about your resume and your life story. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I discovered over time that people's resumes are just a chronological business case for why you should do something similar next. So when people are looking to reinvent, or let's say their industry has disappeared, or they've reached an age where they're no longer viable in their industry, and you have to reinvent completely, your resume is not going to be of any help to you. So I discovered a process where I had people write their life story for me instead of giving me their resume. And in their life story, I look for certain patterns. Like I look for things that they've always been interested in doing. I look for the reasons why they did their original career. Sometimes people, I call it a driving motivator. Sometimes you have a reaction to your childhood, like I'm never going to be poor like my family, or I'm not going to be like my father, or I'll show that teacher who said I was stupid. So we take certain paths because we reacted to something negative. And then when you're all grown up and you've already done that thing, that is no longer a viable criteria for why to continue on the same path. So helping people find new motivation, helping them discover the hidden motivation as to why they did that, that's in their story. And then also reinterpreting our childhood dreams. Like sometimes people dream of being, I've run across this a lot. People dream of being a paleontologist, which is a dinosaur scientist. And they never did anything towards that. So, what does that dream mean today? That dream might mean that you like solving mysteries, or that you like research, or that you like, um, connecting the dots. So, I've learned to look for the meaning of old dreams as to what is still viable and relevant today for people, and help them create a whole new life with it. So, that life story process is in my book. Now what? 90 days to a new life direction, instead, in case anyone who's listening is curious. And so I have people do a life story process with me, and we find a new direction through what their life story tells us instead of their resume.
You talk also about intuition. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, as I told in my own story, my intuition told me to call this friend, this mentor that I used to have. And, I didn't want to tell him that I had a voice in my head telling me to call him, but I did listen to my intuition, and it led me to a whole new career. So I think that when people tell me they don't know what they want to do, I don't completely believe them. I think they have some bits of their intuition speaking to them, but they're too afraid to try, or they don't know how, or they can't imagine making a change. Because sometimes we're just so married to the identity that we have from our careers that we just can't imagine doing anything else. So intuition plays a big part, and listening to your intuition is important.
Taking that leap of faith from acting to coaching can lead to a lot of uncertainty. So how did you deal with it?
Yeah, and people always ask me like, "Oh, did your husband support you, or did you have, a rich bank account?" And I did not have either of those things. But I decided that, I mean, I didn't completely quit my job. You keep your day job, whatever your day job is. And for me, it was waiting on tables and modeling shoes, believe it or not. So I made the transition by keeping other work, starting to work in the new direction. And then eventually just saw that there was a time to let go and take that leap of faith. Actually, at the time, I decided on a certain amount of money that I was willing to invest in myself. I gave myself this amount of money or 6 months, whichever came first. And if I didn't make it work in that time, I had to find another job. So, I know I was in my 20s, so I didn't have as many responsibilities as some people who might be listening. So if you've got a mortgage, and you've got children, and you've got tuitions, and you've got things to take care of, there is a way to cross over, to start doing a little bit of the new thing until you're ready to completely let go.
You talk about in your coaching sessions about the list, things that people want and things that people don't want. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when people are really stuck and they don't know what they want, I prove to them that they do know what they want. And the avenue to finding out what you want is looking at a list of things you don't want, right? So if you hate your commute, or you hate your boss, or you hate, that you're tied to a desk, or you don't like the values of your company, then the opposite of that is something that you want. So if you hate your commute, then you want to work someplace closer to home, or you want to work from home. If you don't like your boss and you don't want that, you want a boss that respects you and that values your creativity. If you don't like the values of the company that you're at, you want to work for a company with values that match yours. So everything you don't want has something you do want attached to it. And I make my clients write these lists for me. And instead of always complaining about the things that they hate, which, people listen to your complaints every day, you start looking at the other list, and it changes your body chemistry. I mean, it changes your mindset, it changes how you feel, and you're walking around looking for what you want instead of continuing to find evidence of what you don't want. And it starts things moving and changing in the right direction.
Why do you think there's a negative energy in regards to work? When we say work, for a lot of people, it's not rewarding. It's more drudgery. It's not fulfilled. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think it's the nature of how how work was created, right? So we come from factories, we come from in the beginning corporate jobs that were just it was just about the paycheck, it was just about having the work, right? So we've evolved as a species. I joke in my TEDx talk that my grandfather would roll over in his grave to know that his granddaughter helps people be happy at work, because happy was putting food on the table, right? So our values have changed. We used to just care that we could provide for our families. Now we want to be self-actualized and like what we do. So we've evolved as a people. You right. Once you get something, you want more, and the more that we want now is meaning and satisfaction. So it gets down to the values of the company that you work for. It gets down to you being careful that you don't just get into a job that's about drudgery, and that you pay attention to, if you don't get your needs met through work, that you're getting them met outside of work, that you have enough work-life balance to do that. So we just live in a different time than our parents or grandparents, and work used to just be work. And now we want work that's satisfying. So we have to keep seeking that out.
What would you say to someone who's just a young adult? They're starting the career, fresh from university to the work force. What would you say to them? Like they might face that midlife crisis in maybe in the 30s or mid 30s or 40s. What would you say to them? Like if that ever happens to them?
Well, when you start out, you just want to, you want to build a reputation for yourself. You want to get credits on your credentials on your resume. You want to prove that you're valuable. Then there comes a time in your mid 30s where you've been the good girl or the good boy, and now you start figuring out what you really want to do. And so renegotiating your job description is, if possible, when you have a review, um, starting to look for other opportunities, networking, making sure that you're meeting recruiters and people know about you, making sure your LinkedIn profile that you are available for hire. You don't have to do that publicly. You can do that with premium and only be visible to recruiters and not let everyone know that you're looking for a job. So it really is up to you. No one's going to do it for you. So if you're coming to that crisis period, just realize that you did everything right, and now you're evolving to the next level where you get to pick and choose.
Do you think that we talk about there's enough talk about that, about the career satisfaction?
No, I don't think, I mean, I think that people want that. Like I've definitely seen for the last 25 years, people more and more coming to me or other coaches to say, I want to do something more meaningful. I want to have career satisfaction. So I know it's happening. It's still only the few wise companies that believe in that, that really want to make sure that their employees are on a trajectory that keeps them with them. And that's how, retention is a big problem. So if you are helping people get where they want to go, they'll stay with you. So I wish it were more mainstream, but it'll get there.
So, what are some big lessons that you've learned along the way
About work.
about your journey, like the transition from acting to coaching and reinventing yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still working on this, but I've learned that I have to worry less, that I get very stressed about making a change, or will it work out, or, this thing didn't work out, so that I make it mean that nothing's ever going to work out. Not true. So worrying less is a lesson that I keep learning over and over again. And also that where there's a will, there's a way. The circumstances aren't always good. It isn't always that everything is roses and sunshine and unicorns and rainbows, but you can make changes. Even if they're small incremental changes, they can go a long way to bringing you satisfaction. Like I've been doing this a long time, but I reinvent probably every 3 years. I do something different in how I coach my clients, or something I learn, or a way that I, structure my day. So always evolving is one of the greatest joys, and a lesson that I try to repeat over and over is allow things to change because it's for the better.
So how was that experience with Oprah? How did that came about?
That came about because I met a producer of the Oprah show, and I offered to coach her for free so that she can know what it was. And she thought it was so amazing that she brought it to Oprah herself. And I ended up with 4 days notice being on the show live. It was very nerve-wracking, but it was a wonderful experience. And it was a great experience to meet someone that you admire so much and have their image not change. She was everything I hoped she would be. And it was an experience that I'll never forget. And it was a day that I needed to not be intimidated by her. I needed to do a job. I needed to serve the 22 million people who tuned in that day. And I could not have asked for a better opportunity to do that. And I looked at Oprah as a partner and not as someone I should be afraid of. So it was a big day that I still remember till this day.
What about the TEDx talk?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the TEDx talk, I had the opportunity to be the MC for a different TEDx event. And I took that opportunity because I wanted to see what it was like to be around a TED event, and how the speeches got made, and how the whole thing happened. And so I was an MC, a host, and the person who organized that TEDx said, wow, I really was impressed with what you did. So when you're ready for your own TEDx talk, come to me. So I was very fortunate that when I was ready to do mine, I had a place to do it. And it's a funny story, actually, because the woman had chosen an outdoor venue, and it was very windy and very noisy. And I came out and did my speech. And after I got off the stage, they said, oh, the sound didn't work. You're going to have to do it over. And I just was like, I was so upset because, it took everything I had to do that speech, but it was very lucky in the end because I repeated the speech in the evening. There was no wind. There was no noise. I got a really beautiful video out of it, and now it has 2 million views, and I hope it keeps on growing and reaches more people.
You also are an author, so do you have more than one book? Or?
Yeah, I have 5. I have 5 books by mainstream publishers. Yes.
Okay, and what are the books all about?
They are business self-help books and one of them is more of a spiritual book. So I've got Take Yourself to the Top, Living Your Best Life, Now What, 90 Days to New Life Direction, the little book on meaning, which is more spiritual, and the Prosperity Plan. So I'm delighted that I get to share those with people.
Okay, and can you give us some nuggets in what are they all about, like some stuff that you talk about in the books?
Yeah, I mean, Take Yourself to the Top. I talk a lot about the inside out approach to success, not just, dress for success and how to behave, but more some of the inside things like getting your needs met at work. What are your values? How do you match that to your company? That's some of those things. Living Your Best Life is a 10-step program for really figuring out who you are and what you have to offer. Now what we talked about, a few of the things we talked about, the hate want list, we talked about the life story that comes from that book. The little book on meaning is, I wrote that after I went to interfaith seminary. In 2006, I graduated from a seminary and became an ordained interfaith minister, which means I know a little bit about a lot of religions and I can do weddings and other life milestones for people. And that book talks about where do we find meaning in our lives. After 9/11, again, people kept saying, I want to do something more meaningful. I want to do something more meaningful. And I couldn't understand why people didn't have meaning in their lives when it's all around us, because we create our own meaning. So I wrote a whole book about where to find meaning in your life. And the Prosperity Plan is about, so it's like wealth consciousness, your mindset for bringing in abundance into your life.
Are those books available on where are they?
Probably Amazon is the best place to look for them.
Okay. And what would be your last words in regards to everything we talked about?
No one should suffer to make a living. So I do believe that everyone is designed for something. There's something you're built to do. And I wish for everyone to discover that and make the world a better place by pursuing it.
Where can people follow you?
If you remember my name, you can find me, laurabermanfortgang.com. And if you just put in Laura Berman, you'll either find the sex doctor or me, and I'm not the sex doctor, so go to the other one. So laurabermanfortgang.com. Happy to talk to you through there.